today defined a dramatic turning point in the career of Mayor Tiffany Henyard, whose political empire appeared to be collapsing in real time as cameras rolled in the courtroom filled with tension. The embattled mayor was left with no choice but to storm out of proceedings at a moment that could only be described as a political disaster. This wasn't just another routine trial, it was a public reckoning that Henyard had long avoided. What set her off was the weight of the growing corruption allegations finally catching up with her, the damning financial secrets exposed for all to see, or perhaps the realization that even her once loyal supporters were beginning to turn against her. The moment was a long time coming, and Henyard's carefully constructed facade of political invincibility began to shatter before a financial malfeasance and abuse of power. The prosecutor listed the claims one by one, including a $43,000 Amazon shopping spree, first-class flights, and luxurious hotel stays paid for by taxpayers. Henyard sat there trying to keep her cool, but with each fresh piece of evidence, her confidence seemed to slip away, stunned. Whispers filled the room as fresh documentation tied and yarred directly to financial transactions that involved misused taxpayer funds. Even some of her most steadfast supporters were visibly unnerved. Her usual bravado was gone. Henyard, who had once dominated every room she entered, now appeared to shrink under the weight of the allegations. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, eyes darting around the room. It was clear she was contemplating an exit strategy. Perhaps the case was a political assault on a strong female leader, but no one in the room looked persuaded. The judge's judgment resonated in the air, and the reality of the situation started to seep in. Henyard's carefully manufactured image of political invincibility was swiftly disintegrating, but as the prosecutor wound up, something unexpected happened. The courtroom was shaken by an unexpected occurrence. A former ally of Henyard, a long-standing member of her trusted inner circle, took the stand. This whistleblower, who was a devoted confidant, exposed a culture of fear and intimidation inside the mayor's administration, where anybody who tried to speak out against a rampant corruption was threatened with punishment. Henyard's cheeks flushed as the truth about her misuse of power came into focus for the first time in the trial. The mayor's customary confidence was nowhere to be seen as a whistleblower proceeded. Henyard's posture dropped, and she looked to lose control of her emotions. The truth about her reign was being revealed, and it was evident that this was no longer simply a political scandal, but the downfall of a whole dictatorship predicated on lies, deceit, and fraud. The courtroom sank into an eerie hush as the seriousness of the situation became apparent. Henyard's effort to influence the story had failed. The walls were closing in. The prosecution had presented solid evidence of financial mismanagement, corruption, and abuse of authority. Henyard's world was collapsing before her eyes. The court requested a brief pause, but when the proceedings began, Henyard was visibly upset. The mayor, known for her dominant personality, was obviously shaken with wrath and fury. She rose suddenly, fists clenched, and snarled at the judge. "This is all lies. You just cannot handle it." The courtroom exploded in disarray, with media hurrying to document the dramatic implosion. Security came in to interfere, imploring Henyard to calm down, but her rage was uncontrollable, and she stormed out of the room, her wrath evident. It was evident that Henyard saw this as simply another barrier in her path, another war to be won. But as she approached the door, her escape was immediately barred by federal officials who had been calmly witnessing the whole event. The audience became quiet. Henna froze for the first time in the whole trial, her stubborn posture faltering, her face twisting in amazement, dread seeping into her expression as she realized this wasn't just another political struggle. It was something far more serious. A lead federal agent approached her, gently presenting her with a paper. "We need you to join us," the agent said, his voice steely. "This is not an arrest, but we need you to join us for further questioning." The courtroom was startled into stillness as the truth of the situation dawned on. Henyard was trapped for the first time. Her political power had failed her, and she stood in front of federal authorities, unable to escape the position. The woman, who previously wielded power as Iron Fist, was now defenseless. Caught by her own deeds in a state of terror, Henyard responded with defiance. Asterisk, asterisk. This is harassment, political persecution, with an asterisk. Her words echoed across the courtroom. You will all regret this, she. The legal team raced to her side, standing in front of her to protect her from the agents. We need to go immediately. Don't say anything, one of them murmured frantically. Try to de-escalate the issue. But Henyard's defiance was clear. She had previously felt she could talk her way out of any situation, but this time there was no way. The agent responded calmly but firmly. Miss Henyard, we need you to come with us. This isn't an arrest. However, the use of the word yet sent a shiver through the room, and Henyard knew she was in much deeper danger than she had ever imagined. The federal agents, together with an increasing number of investigating agencies, federal, state, and local, had plainly set out to bring her to justice, and this time there would be no fast solutions or political maneuvering to spare her. Henyard's thoughts raced as she sought to comprehend the truth of what was happening. Her whole political career, founded on deception, coercion, and shady transactions, was collapsing around her. For the first time, she lost control. The situation has worsened. Beyond her capacity to manage it, even her closest associates seemed unable to prevent the collapse. The tension in the room was evident as Henyard stood still before the courtroom doors. Her once invincible and unbeatable career was on the verge of collapse. She tightened her fists, straightened her back, and gave the agents a stubborn look. But there was no denying it. This was the start of the end. Her attorneys murmured hurriedly to her, attempting to calm the situation, but Hen's disobedience appeared to escalate. Asterisk, asterisk, I am not going anywhere. Asterisk, asterisk, she said. Asterisk, asterisk. You can't do this to me. Asterisk, asterisk. The federal agents, however, were unmoved. Their calm demeanor contrasted with Henyard's frantic energy as they stood firm in their decision. The room held its breath, waiting for the next chapter in the shocking saga of a mayor whose career had imploded under the weight of corruption, abuse of power, and greed as the scene unfolded before the eyes of the public. The mayor who had once ruled Dalton with an iron fist now found herself at the mercy of the very system she had manipulated for so long. The drama in the courtroom was far from over, but one thing was clear. Tiffany Henyard's grip on power had shattered, and there was no turning back. To federal investigation was only beginning, and with every passing moment it became more and more apparent that Henyard's days in office and her freedom were numbered. The people of Dalton, once died, dominated by Henyard's political machine, were now watching the slow, inevitable unraveling of a mayor who had taken too much and given too little as federal agents moved to escort Mayor Tiffany Henyard from the courtroom. It became clear that her carefully crafted image as an untouchable, powerful leader was crumbling. In real time, the courtroom, packed with reporters, was alive with energy, sensing that this was the moment when everything changed. Henyard had been the face of Dalton's leadership for years, but the ramifications from this court drama was just starting. Cameras rolled, documenting every second of her demise, and social media exploded in a frenzy. Phones sprang up, camera flashes illuminated the room, and the world watched as Henyard confronted the repercussions of her conduct for the first time in her career. Her faithful fans, who had previously defended her vehemently, were startled. The dramatic tableau unfolded in front of them, and the flaws in Henyard's political armor were difficult to overlook. A few attempted to yell words of support, alleging it was all part of a plan to bring her down. But as the minutes passed, the tide shifted, and many more started to quietly withdraw, disillusioned by the scene unfolding in front of them. Henyard, who had previously been a symbol of invincibility, now seemed more like a liability than a leader. Henyard's attorneys quickly pulled on her arm, attempting to calm her and hurry her forward, but the mayor was obviously agitated, with fire in her eyes. She clenched her teeth and pushed through the dread, desperate to get out of a predicament. Federal officers surrounded her on all sides as she burst out the courtroom doors, and the trek to the courthouse corridors was nothing short of humiliating. Cameras tracked her every step, capturing the once powerful mayor's demise in full front of the public. The mood in the courtroom was already dramatic, but it reached new heights when a former insider, a trusted member of the Henyard administration, took the stand and turned on her, the whistleblower. Revelations reveal a corrosive atmosphere of fear, deception, and intimidation behind closed doors, casting doubt on Henyard's leadership. The charges were devastating, describing a system based on manipulation, corruption. The gravity of the situation made it hard to disregard. Henyard's long-held notion that she was untouchable had been proved incorrect, and the federal agent's stern, unyielding manner had sealed her doom. The audience, once entranced by her leadership, now saw her demise live, a show of scandal, humiliation, and political collapse. The media went into overdrive, presenting Tiffany Henyard's demise like it was a Hollywood movie. Outside the courts, media bombarded her with questions, exacerbating her downfall. Do you have a statement, Tiffany? Will you step down? Is this TR? The FBI has a case against you. Hen's face twitched with obvious irritation. Her once perfect demeanor slipped as she entered a federal facility surrounded by federal officers. But despite the constant onslaught, she resisted the impulse to engage. She knew better than to supply reporters with additional sound bites. Instead, she preferred to keep mute and concentrate internally on handling the escalating calamity that was racing out of control. Once again, her narrative credibility was suddenly slipping through her fingers, and her staff worked behind the scenes to spin the situation in her favor. A leaked statement came online, claiming that it was all part of a political witch hunt and an organized attempt to suppress a strong leader who dared to confront the system. But as the inquiry progressed, the leak portrayed a more bleak picture. Henyard was not just under examination for well-known corruption charges. Reports of intimidation techniques, financial mismanagement, and even hidden offshore accounts started to emerge. The further the detectives probed, the worse the circumstance became the finality of the moment, which couldn't be ignored. Henyard's long-held notion that she was untouchable had been proved wrong, and the federal agent, calm and uncompromising, sealed her doom. The public, enthralled by her leadership, now saw her demise live. The media went into overdrive, portraying Tiffany Henyard's downfall as if it were a Hollywood film, with scandal, humiliation, and political collapse as the backdrop. Outside the courtroom, media barraged her with questions that appeared to mimic her fall from favor. Do you have a statement? Tiffany, will you step down? Is it true that the FBI has a case against you? Henyard's face twitched with obvious irritation. Her once pristine demeanor slipped when she entered a federal facility surrounded by federal officials, but despite the constant bombardment, she refrained from engaging. He knew better than to give reporters additional sound bites. Instead, she preferred to keep mute, focused internally on handling the mounting calamity that was spinning out of control. The narrative of invincibility was slipping through her fingers, and her staff worked behind the scenes to turn the situation in her favor. Leaked remarks came online, saying that it was all part of a political witch hunt and a coordinated effort to punish a strong leader who dared to confront the system. But as the inquiry progressed, the disclosures painted an increasingly gloomy picture. Henyard was under examination for more than just the well-known claims of corruption. Tales of intimidation techniques, financial mismanagement, and even hidden offshore accounts started to appear. The deeper the detectives investigated, the worse the case grew. Within minutes, the video went viral, with hashtags like Henyard Exposed and Justice for City trending, and social media was flooded with memes comparing her to legendary corrupt politicians. Henyard's inner circle descended into pandemonium. Fear seized her crew as they rushed to find out how to reverse the harm. Her lawyers hastened to discredit the video, saying it was edited, while her public relations staff worked hard to promote assertions of innocence, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. Her most ardent supporters, including local lawmakers and influencers, as well as some of her closest associates, started to remove themselves. One legislator, carefully testing the waters, said, "If these accusations are true, we expect complete accountability." Even television networks that had previously supported her started to modify their tone. The primetime anchor summarizes it best. Tiffany Henyard is being pursued, and she may not be able to escape this time. Everyone could see that things were getting out of control. Beyond Henyard's control, the powerful and confident figure she once was has been reduced to a frantic, ornered politician. The weight of the corruption charges, the intimidation methods, and the public's increasing dissatisfaction with her.
Leadership left her with little space to maneuver. Her carefully crafted image was gradually deteriorating, and it was painfully clear that the political career she had worked so hard to establish was now dangling by a thread.
Tiffany Henyard stood across from a trio of federal agents in an interrogation room, trying to maintain her typical demeanor. Cracks were beginning to appear. Her once confident manner faded as she realized how deep the hole she had dug for herself had become. "This is ridiculous," she said, feigning a giggle as she sat back in her chair. "You have nothing on me." The main investigator, unfazed, put a thick folder on the table containing allegations of malfeasance. Ink statements, wire transfers, and emails revealed a distressing portrayal of a politician who used her position for personal benefit. The investigator opened the folder, glanced through the pages, and slid one to her. It revealed a significant payment from an undisclosed shell business related to a government contract. When her grin faded, he went to another page. It included an email exchange showing how she had granted favors to individual contributors in return for political assistance. But the last piece of evidence slammed her like a punch in the belly. A signed form in her name authorizing a trade that was identified as very suspicious. The investigator leaned forward and spoke with a softer voice. "You may keep pretending, or you may continue to pretend or start chatting right now. For the first time in a long time, we have enough to see this through." Henyard made no comeback. The world had already started to go on without her, and the room became eerily silent. Reporters were prepared for the evening show. Social media was abuzz with conjecture about who might succeed her, and people of the city eagerly anticipated the next chapter in this developing story. Scandal Tiffany, formerly famed for her stubbornness, sat rigidly in her chair, arms crossed, manicured nails tapping on the cold metal table. She'd spent years talking herself out of difficult circumstances, but this time was different. She wasn't up against a formidable political opponent or a smear campaign. This time, she was facing genuine repercussions. The main detective groaned and shook his head before continuing to talk. "You know, Miss Henyard, we've worked with politicians like you before. They all believe they are untouchable until they aren't." As he scanned through the huge file, each page revealed more embarrassing information. Deposits into offshore accounts, bills for community projects that never existed, and emails detailing backdoor deals. Tiffany attempted a grin, but it did not reach her eyes. The investigator raised an eyebrow and moved another paper across the table. This was a sworn testimony from a former assistant who had attended important meetings and chose to speak out. Tiffany's breath became stopped in her throat for the first time. She felt a glimmer of worry. It wasn't aggravation or fury anymore, but fear. She looked at the door, almost expecting her attorneys to rush in and rescue her, but they were not there. She was alone. The walls were closing in. The ramifications from Henyard's questioning started almost immediately. The federal probe became public, causing shockwaves across the political realm. Analysts speculated about the scope of her alleged wrongdoing, with some comparing her demise to other well-known political scandals. Others projected that if the claims were proved accurate, Henyard would face significant prison time. The municipal council, which had previously backed her, responded quickly. One trustee said, "We can no longer stand by while taxpayer dollars are squandered."